The story behind April Rain. Well, that's a good one, and I'm looking forward to even sharing more of it one day. But writing a murder mystery was definitely not a goal on my bucket list. Writing a book, once I started with my first book, An Angel's Journey, and then I did Dear Baby Get Out and the children's book, those were fun. They were great projects. April Rain was something that was kind of put on me, I want to say, by the universe. And, I would write it, and I definitely, kind of thought, why am I telling this story? And in trying to explain why I'm telling the story, I'm going to explain a little bit of behind the scenes of April Rain. And now April Rain is based, or inspired by a crime that happened in my local hometown when I was a girl. And the girl who was murdered was the same age as me. We had the same hair color. And through the years, I found out we had a lot of similarities. But at the time of her murder, it was unsolved. I mean, it was unsolved for 24 years. But we didn't know who did it. Was it a serial killer? Was it someone who targeted her? Was it an accident? All of these things, nobody knew anything. The public was scared. Personally, I went through survivor's guilt. A lot of women, I will say probably 80% of the women, and especially close in that town, went through this survivor's guilt, because why was she abducted and murdered, and why were we all okay? So in trying to figure out what happened to this girl, I, devised a character named Jessica Briggs, and Jessica Briggs and I would have some communication to go down that path of, what happened. When I was writing it, I took a playwriting class to get my characters to have some more dialogue with each other and not just with me. But I also took a lot of writing classes. One of them that I took online was with Margaret Atwood. And she definitely allowed me to tell the story, because someone had asked her in her class, has everything in your book happened in your life? And her answer was, well, everything that happens in my book happens in life, just not necessarily in my life. And what I learned is everything that happened, especially with this particular murder that happened in Agawam, Massachusetts, it happened during my lifetime. It didn't happen to me, but because I was in that environment, it did kind of happen to me too. And, it reminds me of a quote that my father said, and that was, when two people get together and share a story or a meal or a conversation, when you walk away, you change. You walk away a changed person, because a little bit of each other becomes part of one another. So if you shared your story with me and I've shared your story with me, with you, it becomes part of us. And the fact that, I witnessed as an outsider, the investigation and what was happening with that case, and it was unsolved for so long, it definitely, sparked my imagination and my creativity and my curiosity. Writing is a solo sport. I was doing it alone in my house. And again, like I said, I started taking these wonderful classes. I went to the Springfield Creative Writers Museum, the museum, and joined the Springfield Museum Creative Writers, and Teresa Chamberlain runs that program, and she was such a great mentor to help me to share the story I wanted to write. A lot of people write their memoirs, so for me, I had to always say, this isn't my memoir, but I'm realizing it is part of my memoir, because what happened at that time became part of who I am. It shaped me who I am today. It made me become the writer of the story April Rain. So, the story behind the book is the fact that I've evolved as a writer. I started learning, forensic science and going down these avenues to learn, different things on how to solve a crime. Not that I solved the crime, but I was able to come up with these scenarios of what ifs. And exploring a what if scenario sometimes can take you down the rabbit's hole, and sometimes can just really enlighten a story that can be told, I say possibly as a parable. A lot of times, there's stories out there that are relatable, and this isn't what happened to the girl in Agawam, but Jessica Briggs, this is what happened to her, and who knows, maybe it's a parallel to what really happened to that crime. But I, had to explore it. I kept going. I'll say, as a writer, taking writing classes, especially when you're working on something as hard as a murder mystery, and trying to make everything fictional, because I don't know what happened. It had to be fictional. is something that I was able to do because of, you know, really great teachers like, you know, Teresa Chamberlain and Margaret Atwood, and I have to mention James Patterson. I took a master class online with him, you know, during the pandemic. Actually, I think it was before the pandemic, actually. You know, I took it online, and, you know, James Patterson had this great assignment for us, which was think of an ending of a story, and then think of at least three scenarios of how it could have happened. Well, the ending of my story was there was a dead girl in the woods. So how did she get there? Well, because James gave me this assignment, I came up with 9 different scenarios. And he said, take one of them, write for 10 minutes, see where it takes you. And I did that with about 5 of them. The first 4 didn't really pan out. The 5th one, I just kept going and going and going and going. And next thing you know, I got, you know, 300-page novel. And, you know, it's going to hit the screens, and it's kind of exciting to know that, you know, that hard work pays off.